Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we're getting into fall. So I'm going to be talking about some fall recommendations as well as my fall TBR. I feel like for all of my other recommendation videos that I've done so far this year, I really had to look for some books that I wanted to include, but this TBR video, at least for the first lump of books, I was just furiously typing away to compile this list for you. I feel like fall reading is some of the best reading. It's still warm, but you are getting that like cozy feeling. So I'm very excited for fall reads. I'm very excited to share some of my honestly favorite books with you. So for this video, I compiled a list of 10 books that I would recommend for the fall season. And then I also have I think 12 books that are on my TBR for the fall season that I'm really hoping to get to and read. So let's just jump in, talk about some books. So the first two series I want to talk about, I feel like are no surprise, but fall just feels like the perfect season to read them. I'm definitely itching to do a reread here soon. But the first is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I feel like everybody and their mother has read this series already, but if you haven't, I think fall is a perfect time. Or if you have read it, I think it's time for you to reread. I feel like this is a really good series to start getting into fantasy if you're not currently a fantasy reader. It has a lot of romance, and the fantasy elements are not too difficult to understand, and it's a pretty quick read. And then the second book series that I want to recommend will come as even less of a surprise, but that is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. This is my personal favorite series by her. I feel like it's difficult to get people interested in reading the series if they don't already have an interest because it's an 8-book series. She started writing these when she was 16, I believe, so the first couple books are definitely a little bit slower, but the connection to the characters and the relationships that we get and the overall storyline is so good. I absolutely love this series so much. I think about it all the time, and I'm definitely itching for a reread, but it's an 8-book series and there's just so many books that I want to read. I don't know when I'm going to fit it in. This series is definitely still includes romantic elements, but is much more of your classic fantasy. As the series starts, we're following Selena, who is like a world-renowned assassin, and we're kind of just following her on her adventures. And that's all I'm going to say. But I would highly recommend both of these series. They just give the fall vibe to me. Cozy, great cast of characters, and just such a fun time. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is another fantasy. I guess I am trying to clump these a little bit by genre. I definitely wrote them just willy-nilly. Is that a bit better? I hate the little sun dots. But the next book that I have is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was a lot of fun. This definitely takes a lot of inspiration from some of the more well-known YA fantasy series, but I think it's done so well. The banter is fantastic. The characters are so good. The plot is exciting. There is trials in this one, which is a lot of fun. And this is sort of reverse to a lot of popular fantasy series where in a world of elites and a world of people with powers, our main character has none. So this is a lot of fun. Book 2 recently came out a couple months ago now, but if you haven't read this, I would highly recommend picking it up. Again, fall is for the cozy, fun fantasy books. The next book that I have is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is more of a gothic fantasy. Trying to explain the plot of this book is near impossible, but it's so interesting and very easy to understand when you're actually in it. The way that Rachel explains the world and explains what's happening is very easily digestible. We're following Elsbeth, who has been keeping a secret her whole life and lives in a world where magic is outlawed except for the use of Providence cards. And she's helping a group of people try to find all of the Providence cards in order to get rid of this mist that is the cause of the outlawed magic. And it was just such a well written story. The twists, the turns, the intrigue, the romance was cute in this one as well. It was just so much fun and definitely made me want to pick up more gothic fantasy because I hadn't really read anything before. But even when I was reading this, I definitely wanted to read it in the fall time because it really has that spooky, mystic forest and like dark magic situation. So if you haven't picked this up yet, I would highly recommend it, and I would highly recommend reading it in the fall time. I think it's just the perfect season for this book. And this is also a duology, so very short, easy to binge 2 books, as opposed to having a very long series to get through. I have one more fantasy series that I want to talk about, and that is the Kindred's Curse saga by Penn Cole. I've only read book 1 in this series, but it was just so much fun. It was a very quick, bingeable series, or at least very bingeable first book, and I'm itching to continue the series. I feel like, again, the world is very unique and interesting in the way that it's set up and created, but it's definitely not difficult to follow. It definitely has more of your classic romantasy tropes in it, but again, I think they're just done so well. I didn't want to put it down. I wanted to just binge this whole book, and I can't wait. I can't wait to continue. And if you pick it up anytime soon, we can chat about it. It'll be fresh in my mind. Next, I want to talk about a couple random genres. So the first one I have is Finlay Donovan is Killing It. This is a like cozy mystery. Finlay Donovan gets sort of thrown in these situations. Unfortunately, this wasn't my absolute favorite cozy mystery or mystery that I've read, but I do think it's a fun fall read. In this book, we're following Finlay Donovan, who is an author of mystery novels, and somebody overhears her and her agent talking about the plot of her next book, and they assume that she is a like hitman, and so she gets herself into these situations revolving around the people that she's hired to kill, even though she doesn't want to be killing anybody. So it's a little bit of fun, a little bit ridiculous, a cute cozy for like the beginning of fall. Could be fun. And then I also have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this is a sci-fi book, and I really wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. I think this was the first sci-fi book that I have read, at least in my adult years. And I loved this so much. There are some relationships in this book that were completely unexpected and really got to me. There's definitely a lot of physics in this book because we're following an astronaut who is stranded in space and the mission that he is supposed to be working towards. But I think it's just a lot of fun, something a little bit different, and definitely an easy read, even though there is a lot of science elements to it. But not understanding the science aspects doesn't hinder your enjoyment of the book. It doesn't take away from the plot necessarily. And I think it's just really well written. I think it is a movie, or it's supposed to be turning into a movie as well. So that's fun. Now some romance book recommendations. The first one I have is just a cutie romance, and that is The Ex-Hex. I read this a couple years ago, and I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. There's currently 2 books out. It's some of the like interconnected standalone situation. And this book is just so cute. It's very witchy, sort of your classic rom-com setup. We're following a family of witches and this like small town fall festival when there's a curse and they have to try to reverse this curse. And they're sort of like feuding witchy families. This was so much fun. Definitely just a cute little fall romance, and I've seen a lot of people talking about it recently. I feel like it comes up every year, like either people who are recommending it in fall recommendation videos or people who have yet to read it and have it on their TBRs. But if you haven't picked it up, it's a lot of fun. And then I have 2 dark romances. And these dark romances are definitely not beginner dark romances. I feel like unless you know that you like dark romance or you don't really have any triggers or anything that you stay away from, I would not necessarily recommend these. But the first one I have is The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. This was just such a good dark romance. I think it had some elements of like a secret society at a school or something. I just really enjoyed this. Very dark, very twisty, but it was great. I was entertained the whole time. So I would definitely recommend if you are interested in dark romance. The second one I have is Hannaford Prep. I've talked about this book series quite a bit. I read the bind up, which I think increased my enjoyment of this series because I was just with the characters the whole time. It definitely took a while to get through, but I absolutely love this series. Definitely dark, definitely twisted. It starts off as like a bully romance, so keep that in mind. But I don't know, I just got really connected to these characters. Friendships and like found family in books is one of my absolutely favorite things. So if you also like that and you also like dark romance, I would definitely give this book series a try. It also takes place in a high school or like a preparatory school. And so I feel like that's very fitting for the fall season and back to school time. But those are all of the books that I have on my fall recommendations list. And now I wanted to share the books that I have on my fall TBR. These are going to be in no particular order, and I don't know much about most of these books. So I'm just going to jump right in and go through the list. Yes, I'll start with the books that I own physically. So the first one I have is Wicked. This is a bind up of Witch and Curse. I've had this for years and years, and I've definitely talked about this book and this series previously. This was really difficult for me to read and get into when I read it a number of years ago, and even my mom had difficulty getting through this book, but by the end of it, I really enjoyed it. And I do have the second book, but it's been a number of years and I don't remember what happens in this book. So I want to reread this one and read the second one. And I really, really want to get to these books this year. I don't want to have them unread on my shelf for any longer. Like, this is 2 books and the font is huge, the margins are huge, so it really shouldn't take that long, but it's just really intimidating. The next book that I have is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is like a serial killer romance, and I've heard just really great things about at least the first book. I have both the books that are out right now, and it's a serial killer romance. I feel like this fall is the perfect time to read this. I'm just really intrigued. I feel like it's going to be fun and something different. So, and then the last book that I own that I want to get to is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This was very kindly gifted to me by bestie Emily. I'm so excited to read this. I feel like when I first heard about this book a couple years ago at this point, it didn't get the best reviews, but I feel like I've heard about it a lot more in recent months and people are loving it, especially with the newest book in this trilogy out. And it just sounds really interesting. I think, again, this is like a gothic fantasy where death is a reaper, but also the love interest. I don't know. I'm intrigued. Next 2 books are currently on hold at my library. So the first one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I've been wanting to pick this up for the last couple years, but the wait list has been so long. But finally, I think this is going to be the year. I've heard that this is just a cute little witchy book. I don't even know if it's a romance. I don't know if it's just general fiction. I honestly have no idea what this is about other than it's about some witches. And that's all I got. The next book that I have is My Roommate is a Vampire. Again, it's just, I think I heard mixed reviews about this last year, but it just sounds like a really cute, silly rom-com plot. And it just sounds cute and fun and like fits the season. I like to read seasonal books at least a little bit. I love more of the like cheesy vampire-y rom-coms and then like Christmassy rom-coms in the wintertime. So this just sounds like it fits that bill. Another cute seasonal rom-com that I want to read is Morbidly Yours. Again, I have no idea what this is about. It just, honestly, the cover got me in. I think I've heard like good reviews about it. That's why I put it on my TBR, but the cover just looks so cute. Sticking with the romance section, I guess, I also want to finish off the Love Light series by B.K. Borison with Business Casual. I'm currently waiting for my turn at the library, so hopefully I will get my turn before the end of fall, because each book in the series takes place during a different season, and this last book takes place in the fall time, so I definitely want to read that before fall is over. The series overall has been sort of a hit or miss series for me. I really didn't like the first book, absolutely love the second book, and the third book again was fine. So really hoping that the last book is a lot of fun again. Again, back to the back to school vibe, I also want to read the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. I feel like I talk about these in every single one of my yearly TBRs or seasonal TBRs, but I do really want to start this series. It's like a college sports romance, so I feel like September back to school time is a good time to pick this up. We'll see if I have the time to fit it in this month, but I do have a couple other Kindle reads that I want to get through that are in the middle of series. And then last, for the more traditional romance, I think I want to read something by Mariana Zapata. I know that Ella Rose Reads recently talked about All Roads Lead Here. I think that's on her fall TBR, and yeah, once I heard her talk about it, I definitely think that a Mariana Zapata book feels like a fall-winter romance read. The next series that I want to continue on with is Bloodline Vampires by Katie Robert. I read the first book in my October, what was it called? My Halloween readathon that took place at the beginning of October last year, and I do want to continue the series. I think there's only 3 books, so it shouldn't be too hard to continue and finish. This is sort of a classic vampire romance series, which is definitely fitting for this time of year. I also really want to get into the Zodiac Academy. I'm in a really big fantasy mood, and I just want to be obsessed with another fantasy series. And again, from what I know, this is mostly just like vampire werewolf situation, sort of cheesy, but again has more like darker elements, and I don't know, I just think it's a fun time. I wanted to read it for a couple of years, so maybe this will be the year. And then the last book I have on this list is Quicksilver. Thinking about this more, I feel like this is more of a winter fantasy book to me, just based off the cover, and I still just want to read it. I know that a lot of people have been really loving this book, along with some other fantasy books that are getting hyped right now, but this just sounds fun. Again, I think it's more of a classic romantasy story, but I really don't know much about it. I just really want to get back into some fantasy reads because I feel like it's been a really long time since I have really read a bunch of them. But those are all the books that I have on my fall TBR as well as my fall recommendation list. If you have read any of these books, please let me know as per usual, or also what is on your fall TBR. I would love to chat with you. If you did like this video, please give it a like so that I know. And I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.